of our mission to truthfully go where no news will have been going before. From Al-Mayadeen, Zionist games in region to lead to all-out war, says Saeed Nasrallah. Hezbollah Secretary General Saeed Hassan Nasrallah makes a speech on Al-Quds Day addressing numerous regional issues in light of the latest round of escalation in Zionist violations. The escalation that took place in southern Lebanon was a major event, taking into consideration the situation since 2006, Hezbollah Secretary General Saeed Hassan Nasrallah said Friday during a public address he made to mark the occasion of Al-Quds Day. Hezbollah adhering to silence as part of the battle against the Zionist occupation is a tool that terrifies the enemy, the Hezbollah chief stressed. The enemy, he said, which has been threatening Lebanon and bombing Syria, must remain worried and cowering. This is where the balance of deterrence and the rules of engagement are established. The Zionists believed it was an achievement that Hezbollah remained on the sidelines after the shelling from southern Lebanon, and this is something to be taught when it comes to strategic affairs, he underscored. The Zionist occupation did not bomb any Hezbollah infrastructure. It only shelled banana plantations, Saeed Nasrallah underlined. The Zionists lied to their people, while everyone knows that it did not shell any Hezbollah sites, which is evidence of its weakness. Touching on the international Zionist crisis, Saeed Nasrallah highlighted that the divide in Zionist-occupied Palestine would have almost turned into a bloody war if it were not for U.S. intervention and official visits from Western diplomats. The judicial amendments, he stressed, showed all the underlying divide in Zionist society and its bloodless war aimed at eliminating Netanyahu and his extremist cabinet. There is a major dangerous decline in the fighting spirit and sacrifice for the sake of the Zionist occupation. Al-Quds Day sends a message of solidarity and support to the Palestinian people to inform them that they're not alone, Saeed Nasrallah said. The victory that will be achieved in the Palestinian arena will be due to the people and the leaders assuming their responsibilities regarding occupied Palestine, Saeed Nasrallah said. When comparing the axis of resistance to the Zionist occupation in light of the major developments that took place on the international level, we see that our axis is in a favorable position, he added. The Zionist occupation declared being on high state of alert on all fronts, and it was afraid and worried while the axis of resistance was at ease, the Lebanese resistance leader underlined. U.S. losing international status. The strength of the U.S. is declining on an international level, and it's no longer as strong as it was years or decades ago, the Hezbollah chief added. He clarified that the U.S. had to fall back into Venezuela after it had politically and economically blockaded, which is an indication that it's faltering. Meanwhile, another indication of its growing weakness was the defeat it suffered in Afghanistan. The United States' defeat in Afghanistan shook the entire region, and its repercussions are still successively coming to light, Saeed Nasrallah underlined. Officials from the Gulf said they were convinced that they could not rely on the United States to protect a regime or state. NATO's war with Russia and the U.S. confrontation with China about Taiwan's keeping America's hands full and worrying Zionist-occupied Palestine, the resistance chief said. And when the United States is occupied on numerous fronts and it's no longer concentrated in one area, there will be a serious strategic repercussion on the Zionist entity, and the axis of resistance will benefit, he added. Axis of resistance growing stronger. Furthermore, Saeed Nasrallah said, the bilateral relations and the dialogue between the regional compromise, security, and stability. All of the bids to undermine the axis of resistance over the years has been met or have been met with failure, he clarified. This international shift that's taking place is greatly beneficial to the axis of resistance, as it's emerging strong and effective against the wars that have been ongoing in the region over the last 10 years, the Hezbollah chief said. Moreover, the topic of shifts in the international arena, he highlighted the rapprochement between Syria and the Arab world and the Turkish efforts to restore Ankara's ties with Damascus, saying they were important changes, and noting that the Syrian leadership is making normal proposals regarding the restoration of these ties. He also touched on the situation surrounding Yemen, highlighting that the signs coming out of Yemen and Saudi Arabia spark optimism, and this satisfies us. We've been demanding an end to this war on Yemen since its very first day. The Iranian-Saudi agreement had positive repercussions, especially in slowing down the normalization process at the very least, Saeed Nasrallah said, highlighting that the normalization agreements took place at the direction of the United States, contrary to the claims of some Zionist officials. There were talks about a Sunni Zionist or Arab Zionist axis to counter Iran, but these aspirations faltered, the Hezbollah chief underlined. The Syrian position on the Zionist acts of aggression might change at any point in time, and the demonstrations that happened last week in southern Syria are an indication of Syria's stance changing, Saeed Nasrallah said. When the Syrian armies mobilized on the battlefront that spans hundreds of kilometers, you cannot ask them to open another front, he added. The armed groups in Syria might exploit any confrontations with the Zionists in the country on the entire front with the Syrian Arab army, the resistance leader highlighted. And from memo, Nasrallah calls for arming West Bank, Sinwar threatens Zionist occupation. The Secretary General of the Lebanese Hezbollah, the Secretary General of the Lebanese Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, has called for providing arms and financial support to West Bank fighters to confront the Zionist occupation. In a speech marking International Quds Day, an annual event organized by Iran and its allies on the last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan, Nasrallah stated, the resistance and the axis of resistance are reassured, and the Zionist entity is in a state of terror, fear, and defense of the entity that will disappear, Allah willing. Nasrallah described the West Bank as the shield of al-Quds, and added supporting the West Bank should be moral and political, but also financial. We must all work towards this, and anyone who can provide arms to the West Bank must do so. This is a responsibility for everyone. Nasrallah also pointed to deep divisions that have appeared in the Zionist entity, noting that the judicial amendments have exposed all the divisions within the society and have revealed them to the media. Regarding recent border shelling in the South, Nasrallah said it was an important and significant event, and we believe that Hezbollah's policy of silence in this regard is best. There's no need to give answers to the enemy, or there's no need to give answers the enemy would be puzzled by. Nasrallah also denied the Zionist narrative about targeting Hezbollah and Hamas infrastructure, stressing, as a result of what's happened, the enemy must remain anxious, frightened, and terrified. This strengthens the balance of deterrence and the rules of engagement that have protected Lebanon and forced the enemy to make concessions and grant rights in oil and gas, which were strongly demonstrated last week. In the same context, on Quds Day, the leader of Hamas in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, spoke about the readiness of the resistance to defend al-Quds and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Sinwar conveyed in his Friday speech that the resistance has made significant progress on the path of readiness of al-Quds' axis to achieve the promise of the hereafter. Sinwar sent a message to the people of al-Quds assuring them that the resistance leadership and the al-Quds axis would support and protect them. He said they're following the details of the struggle and monitoring the behavior of the occupation forces against them. Sinwar emphasized the importance of staying steadfast in Al-Aqsa Mosque, calling on all the people in the occupied interior, the West Bank villages, towns, camps, and cities to join the perseverance at Al-Aqsa Mosque. The commander of the naval forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, Admiral Ali Reza Tangsiri, announced that the naval forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran had organized a large-scale parade in the Arabian Gulf and the Caspian Sea in support of the Palestinian people. In his speech on Thursday during the ceremony to begin the naval exhibition for popular mobilization, Admiral Tangsiri expressed, "Today more than 2,700 ships are participating in a military parade in the Caspian Sea and the Arabian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz in support of the oppressed Palestinian people. The message of the parade is solidarity with the Palestinian people. Tangsiri stated that the message of this parade to the child-killing Zionist entity is that the oppressed Palestinian people are not alone, and support for Palestine is increasing yearly. He also affirmed that the people of Palestine and Gaza should know we are their support in the sea. Also from memo, Nasrallah, Saudi-Iran reconciliation slows down normalization with Zionists. Secretary General of Lebanon's Hezbollah Hassan Nasrallah announced on Friday that the restoration of ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia slows down the pace of normalization with Zionists. The agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia has great effects on the region and will slow down the normalization process between Zionists and some Arab states, he shared in a speech marking International Quds Day. At the same time, he indicated that the restoration of ties between Syria and Arab countries, as well as the Turkish endeavor to normalize relations with Syria, are important developments. Meanwhile, he asserted Hezbollah will resort to silence and avoid clarifying the missile fire from southern Lebanon to keep Zionists confused. It's forbidden to reassure the Zionist enemy as part of the balance of deterrence. Zionists themselves acknowledged that the response to the missile fire from Lebanon was feeble. Nasrallah stressed the Zionist raid on South Lebanon did not target any site for Hezbollah or Hamas. Regarding Zionist Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's threats, he responded, "All Zionist threats are useless." Meanwhile, on the topic of Syria, Nasrallah explained Syria considers several factors before deciding a response to the Zionist raids, as its army units are deployed along hundreds of kilometers to face off the terrorist groups. On Iran, he remarked that Zionist-occupied Palestine is too cowardly to dare attack Iran, stressing that the U.S. and the Zionist occupation know that Muslim sanctuaries and the Palestinian nation are our red lines. And from the media line, this is Nasrallah threatens Zionist-occupied Palestine with a major war. Last Thursday, I had the opportunity, together with some of my colleagues, to host Lebanon's ambassador to France, Rami Adwan, at a private meeting at his home in Paris. Foreign Minister Abdullah Bou Habib was also present as he conducted a private visit to France, during which he did not meet with any French officials. The regional situation was top of mind as we sought to gain further insight into the situation between the axis of opposition that violated southern Lebanon's sovereignty and occupied Palestine, whose positions have been vacillating between threats and calm. In order for the Lebanese minister to feel comfortable speaking and for us to obtain a few insights, we agreed not to attribute any of what he said in the private session to him. We regret that decision now. The only thing the Lebanese foreign minister revealed was that when it comes to Hezbollah, there is no difference between elected Lebanese officials and the average Lebanese citizen, as they both have access to the exact same information, make the same guesses, share the same opinions, and fear the same consequences. Despite our long experience of this reality, the thought of it deeply troubling, particularly in the critical moment for Lebanon. How can Lebanon's allies take our elected officials seriously when they appear helpless at every crossroad? Without violating the protocol of the closed session with the minister, I can share that Habib confirmed the notion that war and peace in Lebanon is fully in the hands of Hezbollah. Its actions in recent days, such as claiming that the rockets fired at Zionist-occupied Palestine were fired by Palestinian factions, demonstrate that this imbalance of power will remain in place. In his speech for International Quds Day, Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah mocked Zionists by claiming that its airstrikes only destroyed bananas. Major General Hossein Salami, the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, also addressed Zionist Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, warning him of a major war. In his address to the Zionist premier, Nasrallah highlighted the current helpless state of Lebanon, which is being manipulated by Hezbollah at the behest of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. This comes at a time when Saudi Arabia and Iran have signed the Beijing Agreement, which is seen to be isolating Zionist-occupied Palestine. As a result of this, political battle has sprung up in Lebanon between anti-Hezbollah forces over the extension of municipal and elective councils. This battle symbolizes the distraction of the Lebanese political class from the main challenge on our national agenda, restoring the Lebanese state and ensuring its survival. I'm going to open up a channel here. Beam me up.
Beam me up, Mr. Spark.
Beam me up.